Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today is going to be my main reveal, and this is probably the most frequently asked question that I get on my streams and things like that. People want to know which healer I'm going to be maining because they know I usually main healers that are OP, so if I main some healer that means they're probably going to be OP, and maybe there's some kind of truth to it. But again, a little bit of disclaimer before doing my announcement and things like that. Again, a lot of people who've been watching my streams, they probably know which healer I'm gravitating towards. Even if you watch my videos, you probably have an inkling of what healer is looking to be pretty strong in the next patch, and a healer that I played for a long time, and I'm looking forward to coming back to them. But you have to remember, I have to consider quite a few things when choosing a main, because I do like to play a healer that is going to be relatively good in raids and mythic plus, because the first couple of months when a new raid releases, it's probably the most exciting time for me. Then the raid kind of becomes less and less interesting, and then I swap over to pushing mythic plus and try to have a good time as mythic plus player. So because of that, I do have to consider what the raid group composition is going to look like, because right now I can tell you that I'm probably not going to be playing Restoration Druid or Priest, because our raid group already has a Restoration Druid and they already have about 25 priests that are trialing and trying out for our raid group, which means that my choice is somewhat limited in terms of which healers I want to play, because again, you don't want to stack too many of the same classes in the new raid. And I'll do my raid kind of tier list a little bit later on, or if you want a raid tier list, let me know in the comments below. We'll see if there is enough interest. So without waffling too much and wasting your time, the main healer for me for season 2 for patch 10.1 is going to be Restoration Shaman. Not a big surprise for a lot of people, because Resto Shaman has been gaining popularity ever since patch 10.07, because it received quite a lot of quality of life improvements, and Shaman just became better and better, especially in that mythic plus environment. I've played Shaman for actually a relatively long time, and I almost would consider it one of my main characters because I spent so much time with Resto Shaman, and I'm happy to be back because I really enjoy the changes they introduced to Shaman and Dragonflight in terms of mythic plus. For mythic plus, Resto Shaman is one of my favorite healers. In raids, I don't enjoy it as much, but I still have a good time as a raiding Resto Shaman. My favorite thing about Resto Shaman in mythic plus environment is having to weave in your DPS abilities, your healing abilities, and the amount of utility that you provide is almost borderline too much. There's too many buttons to keybind. I love the fact that you can pick up Master of Elements and weaving Lava Burst, weave in your Healing Rain, and Healing Rain dealing damage with Acid Rain is one of those changes that is a very small change that Blizzard introduced from Shadowlands, basically from Torghast, and they made it into a talent. And honestly, this changed the gameplay for Resto Shaman in mythic plus in a significant and interesting way. When was the last time you saw Resto Shaman using Healing Rain and Chain Heal in mythic plus as their main source of damage and healing? It's somewhat unheard of, and I think that is only an interesting aspect of the class. And I mentioned things like Chain Heal because Tidebringer is Changebringer. It's one of the most impactful talents that have been introduced in a long time, because spread fights are no longer an issue for your Restoration Shaman, because pressing Chain Heal, especially when you have those high tide procs, means that the power of your Chain Heal is going to be absolutely insane, and just seeing it bounce from member to member is really satisfying. The main source of complexity comes from the fact that you have so many buttons to keybind and press for depending on which situation you're doing, and things like Cloudburst. And Cloudburst is an interesting and impactful ability, and being the boomer that I am, I enjoy the simplistic playstyle, because pressing Chain Heal to top up most of your party feels pretty good, even after the 25% HP increase to players and 25% enemy damage change. And then dealing damage with Acid Rain, the fact that Resto Shaman provides probably the most damage in a relatively simplistic manner is something that appeals to me, because I like seeing the rewards from my play. The best comparison to this is something like Holy Paladin, because Holy Paladin has so many actions per minute. You're pressing buttons over and over again, and the damage that you get from it does not feel equivalent to the effort you put in. But that's mainly for mythic plus content and things like that, and I enjoy my Resto Shaman in mythic plus a lot. And again, because of the simplicity, I'm allowed to pay attention to interrupts, I'm allowed to pay attention to mechanics. I can carry groups as Resto Shaman in mythic plus so well, because your interrupt as Resto Shaman, arguably the best interrupt out of all the healers. You have AoE stun, you have knock up with Thunderstorm. Again, you have a lot of disrupt abilities, especially on fortified keys where you need those disruptions. You do have a lot of utilities you can provide as Shaman, and because of this, you can carry pug groups. But I don't want to bang on about Shaman too much in mythic plus. I'm going to talk about raiding, because I do play Resto Shaman in raids, and I think Resto Shaman in raiding environment is going to be a fun and interesting healer. It's not as fun as it is in mythic plus, in my opinion, because you have additional buttons to press, and because of those additional buttons, Resto Shaman can feel almost a little bit too bloated in terms of how many abilities you're pressing, because at the end of the day, most of your healing is still coming from something like Chain Heal. But the interesting part about Resto Shaman in raiding in 10.1 is because of the new tier set. I don't really think the new tier set is going to be all that impactful in something like Mythic Plus environments, and I made a video about this. You can go and check it out and the reasons why. But in raids, I think there is a possibility of some interesting talent builds emerging. You might be running a build that's going to optimize the uptime of Riptides, because the more Riptides you have when you press your healing rain, the more benefit you get from your tier set. And then you might be looking at optimizing one of your abilities. We'll have to see how the talent build is going to shape out for Resto Shaman, but because it is still relatively unknown, I think that is very, very fun. Resto Shaman is going to be in a good position both in raids and Mythic Plus, and I think because of the ease of play in terms of trying to achieve good numbers in terms of DPS, in terms of good numbers of HPS, it makes it a very rewarding healer to play, because a lot of the time people pick healers in terms of their new mains and they're like, hey, they start to form greener on the other side type of mentality where, hey, I'm doing so much more work and I'm not getting the same numbers as this class, and you almost start to resent the class that you're playing at the moment, and this is why people start to have less fun. But for me, Resto Shaman is a fun healer. It's probably going to be somewhat of a meta healer in 10.1, which honestly ticks all the boxes for me, and the fact that the raiding guild that I'm playing with right now does not have a Restoration Shaman is only a good thing, because it allows me to be the shaman for the guild. Now, if you watch a lot of my streams and YouTube videos, you know that I like to swap my mains every patch or so, because playing a new class every patch introduces new challenges, introduces new gameplay, and it kind of prevents me from having burnout when it comes to playing a singular class for the whole expansion. And I do tend to have a lot of alts, and I do have a lot of other backup healers, which in case the guild needs for a certain fight. For example, Mythic Razagit was one of those fights where you needed to have multiple evokers because they were so strong early on in that fight's progression. I will still maintain multiple other healers. I probably will maintain my Preservation Evoker, because I think Preservation Evoker got a breath of fresh air in terms of the changes to HP, because a lot of the abilities or talents or evoker synergies work really well with that HP increase. I think evoker is probably going to be one of those healers which might achieve the highest HPS, especially in mythic raiding, because it has so many different talent interactions with HP changes. I think the tier stat is really good in terms of pure HPS. So my advice would be that if you're looking for a healer that's probably going to top HPS charts in something like raid environments, I think Evoker might be one of those healers because of the 25% HP increases, because the tier set provides so much HPS. I think Evoker is going to be a solid pick. But the reason why I decided not to main Preservation Evoker in the next patch is because I'm not a huge fan of a possible build that might emerge for Evoker in terms of Emerald Blossoms. That might be something that people play in raids. Again, we'll have to see how the tier set is going to change the playstyle or the talent choice for this healer. But the reason why I'll keep Evoker ready to go, because I'm really interested to see what the best talent build is going to be for raid and Mythic Plus, because it could be very interesting, but right now I'm not willing to take that chance. And lastly, I might maintain Priest, because I actually think Priest is one of those healers where you can have the best of both worlds, because for me, Discipline Priest is one of the most fun healers in Mythic Plus environment. I think it's right up there with Restoration Shaman in terms of how fun it is to deal damage and heal through that damage. I think Shielding and Rapture feels interesting and powerful. I think Discipline Priest is a really interesting and fun healer in Mythic Plus. While I don't enjoy Discipline Priest that much in raid, because I think they can suffer from button bloat in raid, specifically because you have additional buttons to press. I don't necessarily think that more buttons equals more complexity or more fun, but to each their own. I could just swap to Holy Priest and just press a couple of buttons, or Prayer of Mending specifically with the new tier set, and do really good healing. So I think Priest would actually be a fantastic option for a lot of new players coming into World of Warcraft, especially in patch 10.1, because you're the only healer that has 2 healing specs in terms of Discipline Priest. Extremely fun if you can really optimize it, and Holy Priest if you want to kind of relax and still output really good HPS, especially in raid environments. But these are just my alts, and I probably won't be able to play my Priest in raiding environment because we already have a lot of priests, so this is just for the fun of it. And I do have to have honorable mentions for Mistweaver Monk. And that is mainly because our guild might not have a monk player. We'll have to see if they can get a new trial and things like that, because you need that mystic touch in terms of optimizing your raid performance, because it is a significant buff. I might have my Mistweaver geared up, or at least kind of ready to go in case we need that raid utility. And I don't mind this, because I think Mistweaver Monk is the most fun melee healer out there. I think it's still a very fun and rewarding healer. It could use some fixes in terms of the nerf to tier set. I think that could be reverted, but that's just just my opinion. And my main has been decided. It's going to be a Restoration Shaman, and honestly the fact that Resto Shaman has been getting better and better since patch 10.07, it's looking pretty strong in 10.1, meaning that I will have to spend less time in queues because I do a lot of Pug Mythic Plus content. On top of the fact that I enjoy Resto Shaman, I played Resto Shaman for a long time, I enjoy the simplicity, I enjoy a lot of things that Shaman brings to the table. It feels like the healer for me. Guys, let me know which healer you're going to main in 10.1. I'm still going to say this, it is a big disclaimer. The healing balance is relatively close to this patch, and I think playing the healer that you enjoy the most is going to be the best value for your money, and play the healer or stick with the healer that you enjoy. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.